Before we begin, I want to take a moment to honor the cultures behind the stories we are about to explore. The tales shared here come from many peoples, lands, and traditions. I do not change these stories to fit modern expectations or to align with today's social standards. Instead, I present them as they were told, sometimes beautiful, sometimes harsh, sometimes challenging. We are not here to judge the past, but to understand it, to listen, to learn, and to honor the ancestors who carried these stories forward. We also share stories from various religious traditions. These are presented in their historical and spiritual context, with respect for their beliefs that they represent. Every culture deserves respect, context, and acknowledgement, and this space is dedicated to doing exactly that. Story 1: The Firebird's Nest, the flame that guards its own life. In the deep forest where the trees rise close together and the light of the sun filters only in fragments, there are stories carried in whispers of a creature not bound to ordinary life, a being whose presence is both radiant and dangerous, whose existence is tied to fire itself. This is the Firebird, known as Jarptitsa, whose feathers burn with a light that does not fade, whose wings carry the glow of living flame. It is said that where the Firebird dwells, the night cannot fully take hold, for even a single feather fallen from its body can illuminate the darkness as though it were day. Yet the Firebird is not easily found, nor does it reveal itself without consequence, for its life is bound to a force that both creates and destroys. Those who seek it do so knowing that its presence brings both wonder and challenge, that its light is not given freely, and that to approach it is to enter a space where ordinary rules no longer apply. Hidden deep within the forest, beyond the paths worn by human feet, there exists a place where the Firebird rests, a nest unlike any other, formed not only of branches and leaves, but of warmth, of energy, of the living presence of the creature itself. This nest does not sit quietly upon the earth, but hums with a subtle heat, a contained fire that neither spreads nor diminishes, held in balance by the being that inhabits it. The Firebird returns to the place after its journeys, folding its radiant wings, settling into the space it has shaped, a place that both protects it and is sustained by it. The nest is not merely a shelter, but an extension of the Firebird's own life, a boundary that holds its power in place, preventing it from burning beyond its purpose. Within this space, the Firebird is not diminished, but contained, its flame held in a form that allows it to endure. The people came to understand that such a creature cannot exist without this balance, that even the most powerful force requires a place of protection, a space where it can rest without consuming itself. Many tales speak of those who have sought the Firebird, drawn by the brilliance of its feathers, by the promise of its light. Yet not all who find it understand what they have encountered. Some attempt to take from it, to capture what cannot be held, and in doing so, they disturb the balance that allows it to exist. The Firebird does not remain where it is not respected, and its presence, once disrupted, can bring consequence, for the fire that gives life can also take it away when it is not contained. Those who observe from a distance, who recognize the nature of what they witness, come to understand that the Firebird's power is not meant to be possessed, but acknowledged. Its nest become a symbol not of ownership, but of boundary, a place where life is held safely, where power is allowed to exist without destruction. In this way, the Firebird teaches not through words, but through its nature, revealing that what is most vital must be protected, that life requires a space in which it can grow without threat, and that even the brightest flame depends upon the structure that surrounds it. As the stories continue to be told, the Firebird remains within the forest, its presence carried in the memory of those who have glimpsed its light, its lesson held within the understanding that protection is not a limitation, but a necessity. The nest, hidden and guarded, stands as a reflection of this truth, a place where life is sustained through careful balance, where the forces that create are held within boundaries that allow them to endure. The people who remember these tales come to see that every form of life, whether gentle or powerful, requires its own form of shelter, a place where it can exist without harm, where it can grow without being consumed. In every home that is built, in every boundary that is set, in every act that protects what is vulnerable, there remains the echo of the Firebird's nest, the quiet understanding that safety is not separate from life, but the condition through which life is able to continue. Thus, the Firebird flies, its flame unextinguished, returning always to the place that holds it, the nest that protects its life, in the enduring truth that what is sheltered with care will remain, while what is left unguarded may be lost to the very forces that gave it form. Story 2, The Crane's Nest, the quiet strength that guards life. In the misted marshlands and along the quiet edges of rivers where water meets sky, there walks a creature known not for force, but for presence, a being whose movements are deliberate, whose life is carried in patience and care. This is the crane, or suru, a bird long held in reverence, whose form moves between land, water, and air, whose existence reflects a balance that few creatures embody so completely. The crane does not build its nest in haste, nor does it scatter its efforts without intention. Instead, it chooses carefully, placing its home where the land offers both shelter and openness, where the water protects and the sky remains within reach. In this place, it gathers what is needed, weaving reeds and grasses into a structure that appears simple, yet holds within it a quiet resilience. The nest is not grand, but is sufficient, shaped by instinct and care, built not for display, but for purpose. Within it, life will be held, protected not by walls alone, but by the presence of the one who tends it. The crane is known for its devotion, for the way it moves in partnership, for the bond it forms that extends beyond a single season. When the time comes for new life to emerge, the pair works together, not in competition, but in unity, each contributing to the care of what has been created. The eggs, fragile and still, rest within the nest, their future held in a space that must remain undisturbed. The crane does not leave them unguarded, nor does it abandon its place without cause. It stands watch, its form still, its awareness sharp, ready to respond to any disturbance. Yet its protection is not aggressive without need, but measured, responding only when the balance is threatened. In this way, the crane teaches that protection is not constant force, but attentive presence, the ability to recognize when to act and when to remain still. The marshland itself becomes part of this protection, its waters creating distance, its grasses offering concealment, the environment working in harmony with the life it holds. In many stories, the crane is seen not only as a guardian of its own nest, but as a symbol of longevity, fidelity, and grace, its life extending beyond the ordinary span, its movements reflecting a deeper understanding of time. It is said that those who observe the crane learn from it, not through instruction, but through presence, through the recognition that life flourishes when it is given both care and space. The crane does not force growth, nor does it rush the unfolding of life within the egg it protects. It waits, holding the space, allowing what is within to develop in its own time. When the moment arrives and the shell begins to break, the crane does not intervene to hasten the process, but remains nearby, ensuring that the conditions remain safe, that what emerges has the support it needs to take its first step. The young, once hatched, are guided, not controlled, shown the ways of movement, of survival, of balance, yet allowed to grow into their own form. The crane's nest, though temporary, carries a lasting meaning, for it is not meant to remain unchanged, but to serve its purpose and then be left behind as life moves forward. The young will one day leave, the nest will fade, and the cycle will begin again elsewhere. In this, the crane reveals that protection is not about holding forever, but about preparing for release, about creating a space where life can begin and then continue beyond it. The people who honor the crane understand that safety is not confinement, but the condition that allows growth, that what is protected must also be allowed to move beyond the protection when the time is right. The crane remains as a figure of this balance, of care without control, of presence without force, embodying the quiet strength that sustains life through its earliest and most vulnerable stages. Thus, in every place where a nest is built, where life is held with attention and care, there echoes the presence of the crane, the reminder that protection is an act of love, of awareness, of patience. It is not the structure alone that keeps life safe, but the presence that surrounds it, the willingness to remain, to watch, to respond when needed. In this way, the crane's nest becomes more than a place, but a principle, a reflection of how life is best sustained, not through dominance, but through care that is steady, intentional, and attuned to the rhythms of growth. The crane continues to walk the marshlands, to build and rebuild, to guard and release, carrying forward the quiet truth that safety is not the absence of danger, but the presence of care, and that where life is held with such care, it is given the chance to flourish. Story 3, The Corn Mother, the one who shelters life in her own body. In the lands where the earth stretches wide beneath an open sky, where the rains do not come easily and life depends upon patience, care, and understanding, there is known a presence who does not stand apart from the people, but lives within the very sustenance that keeps them alive. This is the Corn Mother, known among the Hopi as part of the life-giving forces that sustain the people, a being whose body is not separate from the food that nourishes, whose existence is woven into the cycles of planting, growth, and harvest. She is not distant nor removed from daily life, for she is present in the fields, in the seeds, and in the work of those who tend them. Her story is not one of sudden creation, but of continuous giving, of a life that is offered so that other life may continue. In this way, she embodies a form of protection that is not external, but internal, a sheltering that occurs within the very act of sustaining others. In the early times when the people were still learning how to live upon the land, how to work within its rhythms rather than against them, the Corn Mother revealed herself not through spectacle, but through provision. It is said that she gave of her own body to feed the people, that from her came the corn that would become their sustenance. This was not an act of loss, but one of transformation, where her life became the source of life for others. The people came to understand that what they ate was not merely food, but a continuation of her presence, that in each kernel there was a memory of her, a connection to the one who had given it. In this way, the act of eating became sacred, not taken for granted, but approached with awareness, with gratitude, with the understanding that life is sustained through relationship, through the giving and receiving that binds all living things together. The fields where the corn grew were not seen as ordinary land, but as places of care, spaces that required attention, respect, and effort. The people did not simply take from the earth, but worked with it, tending the soil, planting with intention, watching for signs of growth, and responding to the needs of the plants. The Corn Mother's presence was felt in this process, not as a force that controlled the outcome, but as a guiding influence, a reminder that what is given must also be cared for. The growth of the corn was not guaranteed, but depended upon the balance between the elements, the attention of the people, and the natural cycles that governed the land. In this way, the Corn Mother taught that protection is not passive, but active, that to shelter life is to participate in its continuation, to engage in the work that allows it to thrive. As the corn grew, rising from the soil, reaching toward the sky, it carried with it the story of its origin, the memory of the one who had given it. When the time came for harvest, the people did not take lightly what they gathered, for they understood that this was not simply a resource, but a gift, one that required acknowledgement. Rituals were performed, words were spoken, gratitude was expressed, not as obligation, but as recognition of the relationship that sustained them. The Corn Mother was honored not only in these moments, but in the way that people lived, in the care they gave to the land, in the respect they showed for the life that supported them. Her presence remained within the cycles, within the planting and the harvesting, within the ongoing act of sustaining life through connection. The Corn Mother's story does not end with a single act of giving, but continues through each generation, through each season, through every field where corn is planted and tended. She remains as the one who shelters life not through walls or boundaries, but through nourishment, through the transformation of her own being into sustenance. In this, she reveals a deeper understanding of protection, that to protect life is not only to guard it from harm, but to ensure that it has what it needs to continue, to grow, to become. The people who carry her story understand that they are part of this process, that their actions contribute to the continuation of the life she sustains. They do not stand apart from her, but within the cycle she embodies, participants in the ongoing relationship between land, life, and care. Thus, the Corn Mother remains as a living presence, not confined to the past, but present wherever life is sustained through effort and connection. In every seed placed into the ground, in every plant that rises from the soil, and in every meal that nourishes the body, there remains her presence, the quiet and enduring force that shelters life through giving. She stands as a reminder that protection is not always visible, that it often occurs within the unseen process that sustains life, within the relationships that bind living things together. In this way, her story continues, carried forward through the land and the people, through the cycles of growth and renewal, and through the understanding that life is not sustained alone, but through the care and connection that allows it to endure. Story 4, The Ostrich Mother, the Keeper of the Open Nest. In the wide and sunlit plains where the horizon stretches without boundary and the earth lies open beneath the sky, there exists a creature whose way of sheltering life does not follow the patterns one might expect. This is the ostrich, known in various African traditions as a symbol not only of survival, but of a unique form of guardianship, one that does not hide life away but protects it within the open world. Unlike the birds that build high in trees or conceal their nests in dense cover, the ostrich creates its nest directly upon the ground, a shallow hollow pressed into the earth itself. At first glance, it may seem exposed, vulnerable to the many forces that move across the land. Yet within this openness lies a different kind of protection, one rooted not in concealment alone, but in awareness, vigilance, and the strength to remain present. The ostrich does not rely solely on structure to guard its young, but on its own constant attention. The nest, simple in form, is placed where the surrounding land allows for visibility, where danger can be seen before it arrives. The eggs, large and pale, rest within this space, their survival dependent not only on the nest itself, but on the behavior of those who guard them. The ostrich remains near, its awareness attuned to the slightest movement, its presence steady and unwavering. During the heat of the day, the female often tends to the eggs, her form blending with the light of the land, while at night, the male may take his place, his darker feathers merging with the shadows, each contributing in a way that aligns with the changing conditions. In this shared act of protection, there is an understanding that life is not guarded by one alone, but through cooperation, through the balance of roles that shift with the needs of the moment. Among the stories told of the ostrich, there are those that speak of its wisdom, of the way it survives in a land where resources are scarce and conditions can be harsh. It does not overbuild, nor does it expend energy where it is not needed. Instead, it relies on what is essential, on awareness, on presence, on the ability to respond quickly when danger arises. When threatened, the ostrich does not remain passive, but can become formidable, using its strength to defend what it guards. Yet it does not act without cause, for its energy is reserved, used only when necessary. In this way, the ostrich reflects a form of protection that is not rooted in constant defense, but in readiness, in the ability to act when required and to remain still when it is not. The open nest becomes a place not of weakness but of confidence, a space where life is held not by barriers alone, but by the strength of those who tend it. The people who observed the ostrich came to understand that protection does not always take the form of enclosure, that sometimes it is found in the relationships between the one who guards and the space that is held. The open land, though vast and seemingly exposed, provides its own form of safety when it is understood, when one knows how to move within it, how to use its features to advantage. The ostrich's nest, though simple, becomes effective through placement, through awareness, through the ongoing presence of the parent. In this, there is a lesson carried forward, that life can be protected not only by building walls, but by cultivating awareness, by remaining present, by understanding the environment in which one lives. The ostrich does not separate itself from its surroundings, but works within them, using what is available to sustain what it holds. As the eggs begin to hatch and new life emerges, the protection does not end, but changes. The young, once fragile and still, begin to move, to learn, to follow the one who has guarded them. The nest, which once held them, is no longer their only space, for they must enter the wider world. The ostrich continues to watch, to guide, to remain aware, yet it does not confine what must grow. In this, it reveals that protection is not permanent containment, but a phase, a necessary beginning that prepares life to move beyond it. The open nest, once a place of stillness, becomes a starting point for movement, for growth, for the continuation of life beyond the space that first held it. Thus, the ostrich stands as a figure of a different kind of guardianship, one that does not rely solely on hiding or enclosing, but on presence, on awareness, on the ability to remain with what is being protected. Its nest, simple and open, carries a profound meaning, that life does not always require isolation to be safe, that sometimes it requires attention, understanding, and the strength to remain engaged with the world. In every space where life is held with such awareness, in every act of protection that balances care with readiness, there echoes the presence of the ostrich mother, the keeper of the open nest, whose way of sheltering life reminds that safety is not always found in separation, but in the relationship between life and the one who stands beside it, watching, ready, and present. Daily Thread for May 14th. Life begins where it is safely held. Protection is presence, not control. What is guarded must also be nurtured. Shelter allows becoming to unfold. Care is the first form of strength. What is watched over learns to live. Safety prepares the path forward. All life grows where it is protected.